I remember that sometimes isn't always and sometimes is not forever. Sometimes I get lonely, but when sadness overwhelms me, I remember that sometimes isn't always and sometimes is not forever. Sometimes I cry because hurt causes me to shed tears, and when the pain gets too much, I have to remind myself that sometimes isn't always and sometimes is not forever. And sometimes we go through hard times, and just when I think that I want to give up, I give myself hope in the knowledge that sometimes isn't always and sometimes is not forever. Sometimes I miss you and I ache to be near you, and when I feel like it will be eternity before I see you again, I am reminded that sometimes isn't always and sometimes is not forever. Sometimes I feel frustrated that things don't happen as quickly as I would like them to. And then patience taps me on the shoulder and whispers in my ear, sometimes isn't always and sometimes is not forever. But you know, if sometimes meant forever and if sometimes meant always, then I love you only sometimes.
please give a warm welcome to the Chief Executive of ICAW, Alan Vallance, and the Right Honourable Kemi Badenoch MP, Leader of the Opposition.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chartered Accountants Hall. It's a real privilege to host today's discussion and fireside chat with the Leader of the Opposition, the Right Honourable Kemi Badenoch MP. I also want to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests and members of ICAW from across the business community and to the members of the media present today. Now, whatever your political leanings, I think we can all agree that the UK faces a challenging economic context. Businesses are operating against a backdrop of slower global growth, persistent inflation and higher borrowing costs. Many are also grappling with skill shortages and supply chain uncertainty. And together, it makes it much harder to plan for the future. At ICAW, we see this better than anyone else. Our 200,000 members plus don't just understand the economy, they shape it. 84% of FTSE 100 boards have an ICAW member at the table. 3 million businesses across the UK are advised by our members every day, from the smallest startups to the UK's largest global firms. For the last 20 years, we've surveyed those members regularly for our business confidence monitor, and the data we're getting back is clear. Confidence is at a 3-year low, and firms of all sizes are grappling with rising costs and complex rules that make everyday decisions harder. If the UK needs growth to turn around its economy, it will be led by business, and businesses must be given what they need to succeed. That means the certainty of knowing there won't be further tax rises around the corner, the confidence that an overly complex system will be made easier, and the encouragement that barriers to growth will be removed and investment incentivised. As chartered accountants, that's the advice we'd give to anyone managing the public purse. And in that spirit of independent, evidence-based advice, we encourage all policymakers to engage carefully with business to see what business is telling them. And on that note, it's my great pleasure to introduce to the stage the Leader of the Opposition, the Right Honourable Kemi Badenoch MP.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And Alan, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I really want to thank every single person in the audience for making the effort to come. Despite the tube strike, I'm sure it was a real mission to get here. It certainly was for me. It took me 2 hours and 15 minutes. But I'm glad I chose this venue. And I chose it for a very simple reason. No one understands the need to live within your means better than accountants. You are the people who spot the problem before the bill arrives. You know the difference between a plan and a promise. And unlike most politicians, you actually believe that numbers should add up. The rules of economics are stubborn, and if you ignore them, they have a way of catching up with you. No one knows better than accountants that you cannot spend what you do not have. And that is why I am here today. We are living beyond our means. We are spending more than we earn on welfare, on union pay rises, and increasingly on debt interest. Alongside record levels of taxation, this government is borrowing more and more money, and our national credit card is close to maxed out. The markets are starting to worry, but rather than focus on these serious economic challenges facing our country, Labour are too busy blaming the last government for problems of their own making. They are finding governing harder than they thought. I could have told them that. Just last week, Keir Starmer launched Phase 2. Phase 2 didn't even last 3 days. Deputy Prime Minister is gone after trying to avoid the very same taxes that the Chancellor wants to put up. So they've just had a huge reshuffle. It's a huge reshuffle, but it is born not of strength, but a political crisis. And the person who has caused the most grief to our country, the Chancellor, is still in post. She has already put up taxes by about £40 billion. That's the biggest tax raid this country has ever seen. And in the next 5 years, she will double the deficit. So this combination of record taxes and borrowing can only mean one thing, that she has lost control of spending completely, and investors can see it. I warned this summer that we could face a bond crisis if we carry on like this. And this autumn, like a risky customer, the markets are charging us more to borrow than at any time in the last 27 years. This isn't our destiny. It is happening because of the terrible decisions that Rachel Reeves made. And unsurprisingly, her figures are not adding up. She seems to think that the solution is yet another round of taxing, another round of borrowing, but that will just cement what I call the tax doom loop, which she's created. The thing that she and Keir Starmer are missing is plain to everyone else, including and especially people in this room. Because every family, every business, every charity knows what it means to live within your means. And if you don't pay your bills, you will go bankrupt. If you max out your credit card and the late notice charges start piling up, there's only one answer: cut your spending. This is a fact of life that we all have to live by. Ends must meet. And if they do not, there will be consequences. But this Labour government is behaving as if the rules don't apply to them because they think they're nice people. And they are making no real effort to live within their means because they're worried that living within their means doesn't look nice. So instead, they are leading Britain into a deeper and deeper crisis because of their pride. And I don't think that people have realized yet just how bad this mess is. Our children will someday have to pay back the debt that Rachel Reeves is now taking on. They will grow up in an uncertain world. They will enter a job market fundamentally changed by AI. They will compete with talent and capital in growing economies around the world. They will pay for our health, our social care, for the pensions we draw, for the services we need. And on top of all that, they are going to be saddled with paying for Rachel Reeves' wasteful borrowing. That is not fair. She promised to stick to the fiscal rules that she inherited. She broke that promise at the earliest opportunity to go on a borrowing spree. And what did she spend it on? Inflation-busting pay rises for the unions, the same unions that are going on strike right now. She spent that money on Ed Miliband's pet energy company, an energy company that won't produce a single watt of power, and a bill for sickness benefits that are spiraling out of control. Our children will be paying for all of this with interest on top, compounded over decades. They may end up borrowing to pay off the interest on this borrowing. This is like taking a credit card out to pay off another credit card. Nobody in the real world thinks that this is sustainable. There is a hard truth that we must face up to in this country, that we must be brave enough to confront. Britain's standard of living is not an entitlement. It is the sum of our collective efforts. There is no guarantee that we will enjoy a particular quality of life just because we are the United Kingdom. If we want it, we have to earn it. If we want to stay wealthy, we have to produce wealth. We cannot print it. And those politicians spending money on things we cannot afford or making promises they can't pay for are misleading you. They are fooling you. And your children, my children, our children will pay the bill. The Conservative Party is the only party that is talking about this. We seem to be the only party that understands this. And under my leadership, we will continue to tell these simple economic truths. Back in 2010, we inherited from the Labour Party a deficit never seen before in peacetime history. Gordon Brown had not fixed the roof while the sun was shining, so when the financial crisis came, we were exposed. The state was borrowing £1 of every £4 it spent. And it was the Conservatives, as usual, who were elected to clean up an economic mess. We came into office with a clear plan. We were honest with the public about what needed to be done before the election. We took difficult decisions, and Labour hated and voted against each one. But we reformed welfare, so millions more got into work. And we brought down the deficit every single year until the pandemic. And I'm not saying that everything we did was perfect, because if it was, we would still be in government. That's a fact. But we did take some hard decisions so that when a storm came, a once-in-a-century pandemic, we could act. We saved jobs, we protected livelihoods, and we kept businesses afloat. We got the country through it. but the pandemic is now over. Yet this government is borrowing for day-to-day spending, for welfare, for public sector salaries. Their only money-saving idea, the Office for Value for Money, is now being closed down because it cost the taxpayer £1.6 million. This is not serious. The problem is that the more Rachel Reeves taxes us and the more she borrows, the less we will grow. She put up employers' national insurance. We warned them this was a tax on jobs, so it proved to be. Unemployment has risen every month, bar one, since Labour won the election. These numbers aren't just statistics. Each one is a career terminated, a service never rendered, a family with plans ruined, a household in hardship. And what no one ever sees is the jobs that weren't created as a result of these taxes, or the young people who didn't get their first break. And to cap it all off, the government have let the trade unions dictate a raft of new burdensome red tape. They are, right now, pushing through an employment bill that increases trade union power and guarantees more strikes like the ones crippling London today. That bill will destroy probation periods as we know them and bring in day one rights that put young people and people coming off benefits at a disadvantage. And in a move we have never seen before, all 5 of the major business groups have come out against these new regulations. Angela Rayner was the champion of this war on enterprise. But now that she's gone, I say it's time for the government to drop this bill and go for growth. But what does that mean? It means backing business, not taxing business, better limited regulation, controlled lower taxation, cheaper abundant energy. These are the essential ingredients for growth. Everything that this government is doing is making life more expensive for all of us. After just 1 year of Labour in office, taxes and bills have gone up by £1,700 for some families. After her budget last year, the Chancellor promised that she wouldn't be back for more taxes, but we know she will be. All summer, there has been speculation and briefing from the Treasury about an endless series of tax rises, because that budget last year hammered growth. Firms stopped hiring, people lost their jobs, and hundreds of thousands more are on welfare. And with a series of unfunded U-turns demanded by Labour backbenchers and granted by a Prime Minister who is too scared to face them down, she has got a multi-billion-pound black hole in her figures. So what's her plan? She's going to tax us more. She's in the Treasury right now, I'm sure, with officials. I'm a former Treasury Minister. I know how it works. She'll be desperately making plans for anything she can lay her hands on. She will be looking at hiking tax on our homes, on our wages, on our pensions. Every single one of us will be paying a Reeves penalty this winter. This is the tax doom loop. The fundamental problem is our economy is being run by people who think that it is government that creates growth. It's not. It is business that creates growth. We know that you cannot tax your way to growth. But if they cannot create growth, then at least they have a duty to ensure that we live within our means and only spend what we earn. We all have to accept that government cannot do everything. There is another way. We need to have difficult conversations, not just about what government can do, but about what it cannot do. State spending is nearly half of GDP. Nobody sensible thinks that's sustainable. But as usual, the Conservatives are the only party really making this case. We are the only party fighting to protect the money you earn. The only party arguing the government has to live within its means. Every single other political party in Parliament today, every single one, wants to increase welfare spending, and they voted to do so. They want to lift the 2-child benefit cap. They don't mind that our sickness benefits bill alone is on course to reach 100 billion by 2030. There are some people in government who must know that things need to change. You can picture their faces looking at the latest OBR figures, but the truth is they came into government with no real plans for how to save money, only how to spend it. That's why they are in trouble. And that is why today I am making the Prime Minister a serious offer, because the Conservative Party will always act in the national interest. If he is serious about cutting spending and really bringing down the welfare bill, we will help him. The last time he tried this in July, the Prime Minister was humiliated by his own backbenchers. He had to gut a bill just 90 minutes before MPs were due to vote on it. And he created a £5 billion hole in the Chancellor's finances. After his unexpected reshuffle last week, he now has a new welfare secretary, a new chief whip, and a new opportunity. The papers say he is gearing up for another go at welfare savings, but the backbenchers who blocked him last time haven't gone away. Even with a 170-seat majority, the Prime Minister is weak. Right at this moment, his party is gearing up to elect a deputy from the left of Labour, a deputy who will do everything they can to frustrate the changes our country so desperately needs. So whether he wants to admit it or not, Keir Starmer needs our help. If he wants to cut spending and stop this tax doom loop that he created, if he wants to stop pushing up inflation and stop crushing business confidence, he simply cannot afford to fail at this again. We cannot afford for him to fail at this again. And so the Shadow Chancellor, Shadow Welfare Secretary, and I are making him a clear offer. Sit down with us. Let's agree a way to bring welfare spending down. And I will offer him the support of the Conservative Party. This isn't a blank check, but I can say this. If we agree to something, we will vote for it in Parliament on a 3-line whip. There will always be some people who need support, and the Conservatives will make sure they get it. But the current system is out of control, and it threatens all the good that it was designed to do. This is an offer to work together in the national interest, to find common ground and get a serious plan. The country knows that it's the right thing to do. Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have a choice. They can bow to their left-wing Labour MPs again, they can hike up taxes and borrow more and risk our economic future, or for once, they can do the right thing. I hope the Prime Minister will put our country before his party and agree to work across the aisle on this. He knows that it is the right thing to do. Thank you. So I think we now have questions from the media. First up is Tamara Cohen from Sky.
Tamara Cohen, Sky News. You said that you want to help Keir Starmer bring the welfare bill down. You had an opportunity less than 3 months ago to vote for a package of welfare cuts worth £5 billion, but you instructed your MPs not to vote for those. Do you regret that decision?
No, because that bill did not reduce welfare spending. That bill increased welfare spending. Just because they say it's going to reduce spending doesn't mean that it will. They knew at the end of it that that bill was actually going to increase spending. They changed the bill halfway through, 90 minutes before we voted. Of course we weren't going to vote for that. Why I'm making this offer today is so that we don't have a repeat of what we saw, where Labour backbench MPs held the Prime Minister hostage. So we know that he may not have the numbers, and we are offering ours. If he will work with us, let's find some common ground. We can do this. Thank you. Chris Hope, GB News.
Chris Hope, GB News. Last night at the Parliamentary Labour Party, Keir Starmer talked about Reform UK twice. He talked about the Green Party as the problem facing Labour. Today, Bridget Phillipson talks more about reform, doesn't mention the Tory party. You haven't mentioned reform at all in your speech. Do you worry that you're sliding into irrelevance in politics as a party?
Reform want to increase welfare spending. I did mention them. I said every single other party. They don't get any special treatment. They're just as bad as all the other left-wing parties. Yeah. But the fact is, the Prime Minister is facing a political crisis. He is now more focused on what's going on with the Labour Party than what is going on with the country. It is my job as leader of the opposition to bring the attention to the issues that affect all of us, not on who's going to be deputy leader for Labour. Thank you. Next question from Helen Katz, BBC.
You've previously said you could save £12 billion off the welfare bill over 5 years. Is that a target you would stick to, or would you be flexible on that if you could get this cross-party agreement up and running?
Well, so Helen, you're talking about the reforms which we were going to bring in at the last election and which we've been talking about since. We do need to bring the welfare bill down. The specifics will be for us to discuss. Let's find some common ground. But right now, we cannot be in a situation where the bill is going up and up and up. It may be that we can find more, but what we need to do right now is find some common ground and actually start making savings. Because if we don't do this really soon, it's going to be too late. Max Kendricks from The Times.
Thank you. The annual cost of the triple lock on pensions will reach $15.5 billion a year by 2030, 3 times higher than originally predicted when the policy was first introduced. So, I mean, that's a huge part of the welfare state that so far both parties have committed to keep. If in this hypothetical cross-party committee Labour suggests getting rid of the triple lock, would you support that?
No, the triple lock is Conservative policy, has been, and it continues to be so. We need to start with where the immediate problem is. People are out of work. We have 1 million more people out of work since the pandemic. We've been getting an extra 1,000 people since Labour coming into office every day claiming health and sickness benefits. That's 3,000 new people every day. If we start there, then we can start fixing the problem. If we had 3% growth, a lot of these problems would disappear. If we can get growth back, then we don't need to be talking about the triple lock. But right now, what people see is unfairness. They see a whole bunch of people not working and them having to pay more and more, having a higher cost of living, paying for other people not to go to work. From the principle of fairness, the important place to start is welfare. And that is why we've started with welfare. That's where we have identified savings, and we want to find common ground with Labour. Thank you. Ryan Saby from The Sun.
Thank you. Nigel Farage recently said it would be 50-50, you'd be gone by Christmas. As we head to the party conferences, is this the start of the fight back, or is this make or break for you?
This is me doing my job. Nigel Farage can say whatever it is he likes. On Sunday, he sat there saying that he wasn't actually sure how he was going to deliver any of the things that he was talking about. This is not serious. We are facing an economic crisis. There is only one party that has the experience and a plan to get us out of the mess we're in. This is not a game. This is not jokes. This is not about me. This is about our country. And I'm going to do everything that I can to hold the government to account and make sure we help them to get us out of the mess we're in. And that is why we are making this offer. Let's sit down. Let's find some common ground. We're not going to agree on a lot, I'm sure. They are a left-wing party. We are the only party on the centre-right, despite what Nigel Farage says. But right now, we need to work together to solve this problem. Camilla Tominey, Daily Telegraph.
Hi, Camilla Tominey, Daily Tea Podcast. You're saying that you're serious and that you're the only party that can be trusted on the economy, but we haven't actually heard any policies on the economy from you specifically. Some think that when the Tories were in office, they were actually anti-business by putting up corporation tax, that you didn't keep income tax down enough. What are you actually going to do, for instance, on tax? And I don't mean outline your manifesto now, but give us some ideas that you might be exploring.
So thank you, Camilla. As a former business secretary, I know exactly what business was telling us. And there are many mistakes that the party made. I wasn't the Chancellor. I wasn't in the Treasury. I am now trying to show that the Conservative Party is under new leadership, and we need to show that we are authentic Conservatives. That starts with fiscal responsibility, living within our means, but also recognizing where money comes from. It's not just sitting there in a bank or being printed. It has to come from business. So we need policies that are going to get business booming again. Last week, I talked about one of our biggest policies on net zero. Net zero is an economic policy, and it is costing this country billions of pounds. I said we need to start drilling oil and gas in the North Sea again, because right now, what's happening is we're importing from Norway, who are drilling in the same basin, while we're closing down our businesses. There's about 150 billion pounds worth of tax that the oil and gas industry can give us if we set them free. And that's just one example. There are many others. But we need to start looking to business to get the growth, not to Rachel Reeves, because she doesn't know how to. Dan Martin.
Hi. Just on migration, the government says it wants to restrict the interpretation of the ECHR. to reduce the number of small boats. I'm just wondering if you think that is enough, or should the government go further?
We will announce what we're doing on the ECHR. I have said that if we cannot control our borders without leaving, then we should leave. But we need a clear argument and a clear plan, understanding the consequences. But do I believe what Labour is saying? Not really. I remember when Shabana Mahmood was signing letters saying we shouldn't deport foreign criminals. She actually signed those letters. They voted against all of the measures which we were trying to bring in to bring down immigration. They promised to smash the gangs. No gangs have been smashed. They cancelled our Rwanda deterrence plan without something in place. Now we've seen crossings go up by an extra 1,000. So I'm not really convinced that their heart is in this. I don't believe that a Labour Party that believes in open borders and thinks controlling borders is racist is going to do anything at all about migration. And so far, I've been proved right. Harriet Line, Daily Mail.
Thank you. Figures out today show that the number of sick days taken by British workers is at a 15-year high, almost 2 weeks on average. What do you think is going wrong?
I think that those figures are extraordinary, and it's on top of the 3,000 people, new people each day claiming health and sickness benefits. In July, I gave a speech on this, and I think one of the things that's happened is that post the pandemic, a lot of people have just switched off work, and the way that we assess need for disability has changed in the wrong direction. We made it remote assessments possible because we didn't want people to have to go in because of the pandemic. That's something that needs to close, because what we're finding is that a lot of people with very, very mild issues, mild anxiety, mild depression, are signing off work. There's no one assessing them. We need to get them back in, and that's just one of the ways that we're seeing the problem on out of work benefits really rise. But we just need to get productivity going again. And a government that's focused on growth will be focusing on productivity. We cannot do that without getting people out of off benefits and back into work. All right, I think that is it for questions. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Kemi, for that. As you said in your speech, engaging with business understanding is really essential to finally unlocking the growth that this country needs. And with that in mind, we've been asking our members at ICAW about the real issues that they're concerned about. And they've come back with issues around public spending, AI, growth and investment. So I wanted to explore some of those with you if I can. And we'll start with the last one, growth and investment. So we've heard very clearly this morning about the need for stronger growth. Confidence amongst our members at the moment through our business confidence monitor is at an all-time 3-year low. So they tell me that rising costs, complexity and constant changes, so as well as the upcoming employment rights bill.
Sorry, I'm just going to take this
cushion
because it's not comfortable.
That's fine. I'll do the same. But they're telling us it makes it harder to invest. So beyond tax, you talked about that. Can we explore a bit more what more you think the government needs to do to help businesses get the confidence they need to plan, invest and grow?
So one of the most frustrating things about being business secretary was understanding the issue but not having the levers. And the most frustrating thing that business experienced was just the lack of certainty. Things changing again and again. Today we're doing this, tomorrow we're doing that, and they couldn't plan. Business needs certainty in order to invest. So providing an environment where they have that certainty is really critical. And that means setting out what a Conservative government's roadmap looks like. So that's one of the key things. But we also need to look at what business is asking for. They are overburdened by red tape. This is one of the things that is not looked at enough in government right now. You talk to a business, especially a small business, they complain about even the local council bringing in more and more regulations for them to comply with. And we may see the businesses that close, we never see the ones that never start in the first place. So it's quite critical that we reduce the burden of regulation. That's the work that we're doing right now. Labour's employment rights bill with more trade union powers, more strikes, day one rights, which will make life much harder for younger people and those looking for their first job. This is just yet another burden that business has to carry. And one of the things that I want to do is lift the burden off business. They're the ones who will create that growth. So a deregulatory package is going to be required, and one that gives long-term certainty, not just certainty for the next year or until the next budget.
Okay. So in my question before, I just said beyond tax, but it would be remiss of me not to ask, we're 2 months out from the budget, and given your time in government, your experience, and also the challenges and difficulties of delivering reform in practice, if you were setting the next budget, hypothetically, what would you prioritise, and why would you do so?
So I would prioritise those elements which encourage people to take risks. I think that we have turned into a country that is afraid to take risks. That's where all this regulation is coming from. Nothing bad must happen. Let's bring in a new law, and then when that law is there, everybody will have to follow it, and then nothing bad will happen. That's not how life works. We've created a zero-risk environment, and without risk, there is no reward. So we need to stop punishing people for taking risks, and we need to stop assuming. Thank you. And we need to stop assuming that growth will just, will just be there as long as government is setting rules. But we also need to look at things that will help drive up productivity. Productivity in the private sector has been increasing over the last decade and more. It's the public sector where the problems are really, really entrenched. So any budget, any government's plan also has to look at how we are ratioed between public and private sector. That's something that's going to be key. We need more people in private enterprise.
That's a great lead into my next question, because I wanted to talk about productivity and ask you about that. So our members are very clear. Productivity is absolutely the UK's biggest long-term challenge, and new technologies, AI, automation could be transformative, but they also raise other really serious questions. So earlier this year, in March in fact, we all heard at the ICAW about Jeremy Hunt's suggestion that AI was going to replace accountants and that they should become doctors instead. And actually, a couple of days later, Bill Gates then came out and said that AI would replace doctors and teachers. So I think it's a bit difficult at the moment to be a careers advisor, if nothing else. But joking aside, there are some really kind of challenging issues. And it's certainly true, I think, that AI will change many roles, some positively and some not so. But I wanted to ask you a question drawing on your experience and expertise, because you've got not just a bachelor's, but a master's degree in computer engineering. You've worked as a software engineer. So I'm really interested in you drawing on your background as well in that experience, and talk about AI and technologies and the way that you see them improving productivity, not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector.
So first of all, I don't think accountants have anything to worry about. This is, and people might disagree, but if you look at what happened with Angela Rayner, I think we all need to speak to a human being and ask what we need to do with our taxes. If AI gives you a wrong answer, you can't take it to court. There's no liability there. So I would rather speak to a qualified professional, ideally from the ICAW.
Thank you. We'd support that. We definitely support that, Kemi. Thank you.
But you asked about my own background in engineering. One of the things that working in tech taught me is that we always overestimate the impact of technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. And I think that's what's happening with AI. I remember when I was graduating, that was when the dot-com crash occurred, and everybody wanted to work online business and set up their website, and we all thought that that was what was going to make us millions and billions, and it did for some people, but for everyone else, it actually just turned out to be just another channel, just another medium, and you needed to focus on what you were actually producing, how you were actually generating wealth. I think that it's too soon to say exactly what AI will do to every single industry. It will help many. It might destroy some. What we need to do is make sure that everyone is educated to a point where they can cope with that. This is where having a plan on skills that isn't reliant on everyone going to university is going to be key. I mean, I had 2 degrees. I did one in engineering, I did one in law. But a lot of people don't know I also did an apprenticeship. And actually, it's what I did during the apprenticeship that I remember most now, age 45 and a half. I can't remember how to do parallel integration. I can't remember everything that I did in my law degree. But I can still build a computer, because the things you do with your hands, I think, actually stay with you.
Brilliant. Can I then take us back? I said we'd talk a little bit about public spending. So another thing our members are really concerned about is uncertainty and tax. We talked about that. But The UK also faces a number of long-term pressures, and you've talked about a couple of them today. Ageing population, rising health, social care costs, the need to spend more on defence. So from your perspective, what's the right balance? How do we find the balance between keeping the tax burden competitive on the one hand, but also ensuring that public finances remain credible on the other?
We have to be honest. Honesty is key. Pretending that we can always do every single thing that we did before without changing is dishonest. And one of the things that I often say is that there are no perfect solutions, there are only trade-offs. If we are getting older as a society, certain things will need to change. People may need to work longer, lifestyles may need to change. And we need to look at those structural issues that are impacting society, just as you described. What causes the problem is people believing that everything can stay the same and more money will just arrive. It's not just what's happening to us, it's also what other countries and economies are doing. More countries are competing aggressively with the West, with Western Europe, in a way that they never did before. And we have to be alive to that in an era of increased competition, we cannot be complacent. We cannot do things the way we used to. That will require compromises, it will require trade-offs. But if we have an honest debate in politics that we can't do this anymore, let's try something else, that will be better than what we see right now, where everybody is saying, oh, we can do everything. And the only reason why we can't is because of greedy fat cats or immigrants turning up, stealing jobs, and so on. This is not an honest conversation. Of course, we need to make sure that we look after our borders and manage migration, but we have to be honest and realistic about what life is like in 2025 and what it's going to be like for the next decades.
I'm going to ask a last question now, and if we get time, we'll invite the audience to ask a question or two in the next 5 minutes or so. But it's about engagement with business. So I've talked before about the fact that we have over 200,000 members. They're working with 3 million businesses across the UK, and they cover the smallest organisation through to the very largest. And they consistently tell us that certainty, clear communications on policy matters are really essential, and you've reflected that, I think. But how do you see government working more closely with organisations like ICAW and others to make sure that the voice of business is really properly reflected in policy?
But by listening, and I mean honestly listening. I was horrified when senior business people would come into my office as business secretary, and I know quite a lot of my shadow cabinet had this experience, and would explain the consequences of policy which had been designed probably years before by people who'd never worked in business, never run a business, to meet perhaps a philosophical or ideological objective. If I think about the extended producer responsibility deposit return scheme, my business was shedding its hair at the way these policies had been designed. So we need to get business actually involved in writing policy, in helping designing policy. There is an assumption in Whitehall that business is only looking after its own interests. I think that's completely wrong. I think that creating jobs, creating a profit is corporate social responsibility, and by doing so, it helps make a healthier economy. And so we should listen to business. Of course, we should be alive to vested interests and those who don't want competition, who want monopolies or oligopolies. But if we listen to business and listen to them explain what the consequences of certain policy decisions will be, we will end up in a much better place. We don't need, many more business councils and, all sorts of apparatus which you find in government, which actually end up being Potemkins, a way to fob off business while doing what they were always going to do instead. I hated being in those meetings. We need to have real discussions, real conversations, and that will often mean government hearing things that it doesn't want to hear or doesn't like hearing, but it'll be the truth.
Thank you, Kemi. We've got a couple of minutes left, so it's okay with you. I might throw to the audience 2 minutes. If anybody's got a question, would you raise your hand and we'll go to you. Anybody in the room? Yep. We'll go here first if we can. Bring the mic through. Oh, sorry, we've got one at the back, and then we'll come to you, and then we'll close. Thank you. So at the back, you want to go first? Just say who you are and where you're from.
Hi, I'm James from the Conservative Disability Group. And while I agree with Kemi that we must cut welfare and it's unsustainable, do you agree that we need to invest in access to work, mental health services to support those with disability as well?
Yes, and those have always been policies which we created. Getting people into work is the key thing. And having people sitting at home claiming benefits is not good for the economy, but is also not good for many of those individuals as well. And this is what is so terrible about the very low level conditions being signed off work, when actually work would be almost a way to help people deal with those conditions.
Thank you. And your question?
Hi, I'm Emma McClarkin. I represent the British Beer and Pub Association. I want to thank you and your Conservative colleagues for the opposition debate last week on hospitality, a sector that the Bank of England has recognised has been hit the hardest. We've lost 89,000 jobs, but we have so much to bring to the table. I represent the beer and pub sector. That's 1 million jobs. But we have received over 853 million of costs in this year alone since the last budget. Will the Conservative Party continue to support the Great British Pub by making sure that we get permanent core components of our costs come down, like business rates, with permanent reform to rebalance that, so we can keep contributing to our local economies, but also socially to the communities that we knit together?
Emma, you've done a very great job speaking up for the Great British Pub. I think all of us are in despair at how our local pubs are closing. I see it in my constituency as well. And we have various campaigns to actually save pubs in our country. But reducing the burden of regulation that they have is absolutely key. Hospitality is the #1 sector hit by many of the changes in the budget. Employers' national insurance makes it harder to employ people. Raising that threshold for when minimum wage kicks in means that young people, who tend to be, the first go-to for hospitality employment, are more expensive to hire. We should never have policies that make it more expensive to hire young people, because it means they don't get their first job, and it's later before they get their next job. And it has a knock-on effect, a ripple effect that's actually really, really destructive. So I hear you. Making sure that we have a policy package that is coherent is what we're working on now. I do not want to sit here and just make an announcement without us having a plan to back it up. And we're going to be talking a lot more about what our plans will be at Party Conference. So I hope to see you and many of the people in this room there.
Thank you. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So can I thank Kemi very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you for your time this morning, for spending the morning with us at Chartered Council. We really appreciate it, and for listening to business. And can I ask you all to thank Kemi in the usual way? Thank you.